We are done with the front end of our application, so now we need to focus on the back end. And I want to segregate these two pieces so that we don't have all of our admin code intermixed with our front end code. So we're going to put all of our admin stuff in a folder called admin. So let's create a new folder, of course, at the root of our project. And then we will create a file called index.php. This is going to be the controller for the index of admin. And we also need a view here. So we want to continue on this idea of organizing our project. And we could put a views folder inside of the admin, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I want all of our views in the same place, but we need some organization. So we're going to create a new folder inside of views called admin as well. And then we will create our view. Although let's just take our existing index view and paste that into the admin folder just so that we have something to start with. Let's also take the first two lines of code from our old index controller and paste that in. Now we do need to modify the path here because we are inside of a subfolder called admin. We need to go back a level so that we can get to our project's root and then go into app and then PHP. So we're just going to say .. And then let's do this. We will say view and we will specify admin/index. So that should work, right? Well, let's see. If we go to admin, well, code executes. That's saying something, but we see that there's an issue here. It cannot find views/layout.view.php. Now, the reason why it can't find it is because we've been using relative paths. And whenever we included that app.php file, which also includes everything else, well, all of the relative paths now are for this admin folder. So this is actually looking for a admin/views/layout.view.php file, which of course doesn't exist. So we need to make this work. One of the options is to completely reorganize our project, and I don't want to do that, for one, because that's a lot of work, and for two, I like how our project is currently organized. So another option then is to start incorporating absolute paths, because relative paths are great for flexibility, but sometimes you just need an absolute path. And it would be great if we had an absolute path for our current project folder. So that would be for the 4.6 folder. So first of all, what is an absolute path? Well, we have a relative path here. An absolute path would be something like this. We wanted to get the folder to this 4.6, or the path to this 4.6 folder. So the absolute path on my machine would be c:/mamp, and then htdocs, and then 4.6. That is the absolute path to this folder. And we could hard code that, but I don't want to hard code that because as we move this project from one folder to another, we're going to have to go in and make that change every time. I want this to be as flexible as possible. So instead, what we can do is try to get the absolute path to our project folder by using the tools that PHP gives us. One of those is called __file__. Now, this is going to give us the file, or rather the file name of wherever this code exists. So we are inside of index.php inside of admin. So we're going to see that path there. But if we change this into any other file, we're going to see the path to whatever file we put it in. So we can go to app.php, we can paste that in, and then we will see that change. Now it is app/app.php. So this gets us kind of close. I mean, of course, we want to take off the app/app.php. So let's try to start doing that. Well, one of the tools that PHP gives us is a function called directory name. Actually, it's dir name, but it's short for directory name. This is going to give us the directory of whatever file we specify. So this is at least going to chop off the file name. It is still going to have app at the end, but that's at least closer. And we could write code that would then strip this out. And I don't want to do that because that just takes too much time. So instead, I'm going to do something like this. We can concatenate a string that says /./. And whenever PHP and the operating system interpret that, it's going to actually drop us back to our project folder. It looks funky if we echo it out. I don't care what it looks like as long as it does what I want it to do. So now we just need to define a constant value that is going to have our application path, because then we can start using that anytime that we wanted to specify an absolute path so that we don't have any issues as far as relative paths are concerned. So we can start by trying this. We can say const and then app_name equals, and that would be a good first try, except that this isn't going to work because whenever you use the const keyword here, that means that whatever constant value that you're going to create has to already exist. It has to be a literal value. It cannot be something that is computed, because what we're doing here is computing the directory name of file and then concatenating the /./. So instead, we can do something like this. Const is relatively new to PHP. Before we had const, we had a function called define. It essentially gives us the same thing, but in this case, it will allow us to compute the value for our application name. So that we will call this define function. We will create this app name constant, and it's going to have the value here. So now we can use this app name, and we can go inside of our functions, and we can change this where we specify our layout page. So we're just going to concatenate the app name with the rest of that path. And if we view the admin index page, we're going to see that it's actually going to at least have the markup there. The styling is off because of how I pulled in the CSS. So let's go to our views and then the layout page. And we're just going to take off the .. because whenever you do that and you start the URL with a slash, it's going to take this relative part of the value. And this is the browser doing this. This is not PHP. It's going to take the relative path that we have and add that to the host of our URL. So it's always going to start at the beginning of the URL path, which is the host, and then tack on everything else. So now we see our styling. If we go back to the front end, we see the styling and everything there. But notice that we still had a warning, invalid argument supplied to for each, and that's because we did not include our data. So let's go to index.php, and let's call our getTerms function. And whenever we refresh, well, we still don't have anything there, do we? Now, the reason why is because if you look over here inside of admin, we now have this data.json file. So this is something else that we have to change because we used relative paths for the data file name, and so it created this data.json file inside of admin. We don't want that. We just want to use our current data.json file. So we can do this in two different ways. We can go to config, and we can use our app path here. So this would probably be the best place to do that so that we don't have to worry about specifying this anywhere else. But the other option would be to go to our data and then file functions and then concatenate the app path there. I don't want to do that there. I want to do it in the config. So anytime that we reference our data file, it's going to have the absolute path. So now we can go back, let's refresh this, and use of undefined constant app path. Well, that wasn't supposed to happen. So app path, we just used this. Why is it not working? That's why. App_name. I want this to be app path. App name doesn't make sense. So this means that we need to go to our layout, not our layout. We need to go to functions.php, change that to app path. Now, whenever we refresh, there we go. So we are inside of admin. We are pulling in the correct data file, and we are pulling in the correct view. If we go to the front end, we're going to see the same thing. So we have at least fixed that particular problem. Any other time that we need to reference a particular file, then we might need to use our app path. Now, this did create a new data file. I did app path, and yeah, okay, so let's delete, and there we go. So in the next lesson, we can start working on the admin portion of our application.